Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I have a review of these new Rembrandt Watercolors. Well, they're new to me anyway, they're not a new product, but I've been playing with them quite a bit the last couple weeks, and I decided to, I know enough about them to review them and share them with you. So I've been thinking about purchasing these for about a year. This is the watercolor box set of 48. I wanted a set of 48 colors, basically so I could have a paint set with all the colors that I'm going to use at my fingertips. I don't use 48 colors in a painting. I only use probably about 5 or 6, but I'll vary the different 5 or 6 that I use. So I wanted something with a good variety that also had a good mixing area. I had decided when I first had that need that I was going to go with the Lucas ones because they were on sale for like $114 for that set, and they were good. Definitely worth the money, but they weren't the best watercolors out there. And when I saw these Rembrandts go on sale on Amazon for $134 something for the set, after much hemming and hawing and deliberating, I decided I would get them, and I'm really pleased that I did. And I'm not doing this review saying that you need to go out and buy these, not at all. If you have watercolors you're happy with, definitely stick with them. And a lot of these things I'm going to mention are subtleties that a beginner might not even notice between different brands of paint, but the more you paint, the more you know watercolor, the more you'll start to pick up on some subtle differences. So I want to tell you about these paints today, so that if you are wondering, if you're just trying to decide on buying them, or if you're just wondering on what kind of paints to get, that you have a little more information. And I do have a lot of other reviews, so keep your budget in mind, keep your needs in mind, and hopefully this will help you with this type of paint. So they come in this this box with a sleeve. So I'm just gonna, this is actually a really nice box. I'll probably reuse for something else, but I just kind of want to show you how they come. And they're actually all wrapped up in little wax paper wrappers. So when I get a set like this, I unwrap them and I glue them down to a piece of watercolor paper, and then I swatch out their colors directly underneath. That way I preserve the paint information right there. So if I want to reorder something, say I love this color, I might want to order a tube of it, I can find that color exactly and reorder it if I want to. Now, in addition to this swatch here, which tells me quite a bit about the paint, because not only do I have the pigment information, I swatch it out, and then I go and put a glaze of a layer of one layer of color on top, so I can see how it builds intensity, and I can see it at full strength. And that's what I like to do. It was a viewer, AFK, that showed me the idea of saving the wrappers and gluing them down, and I love that idea, and I've used it ever since she showed me her swatches. And I also make a mini swatch. It's not even labeled, just from my tin. That way when I am painting, when you have transparent watercolors, they often look very deceiving. Like these look so dark you can hardly tell the greens apart. So if I have them swatched out, I can see what I have. You could label these if it's important to you. I just I mix by sight mostly. I look for my cool red or my warm red or my cool blue. I kind of say, what color am I trying to get, and I go for the 2 colors that are the closest, and I mix them together. So you can do however you want. This did come with a sable brush, just to let you know this particular set did, and it was right down the center. And this will come out if you want more mixing area. Now, the tin did stain a little bit, not very much, from one of the quinacridone reds, but it mostly came up when I washed it. And a good tip whenever you get a new paint set is to wash the palette with dish soap, because there's often like a residue on the palette that'll keep your paint from not beating up. And I always forget to do it, and then my paint's beating up, and then I decide to go wash it. So hopefully save you a little bit of time there. So you can see that there is a really good variety of color here. And I'm just going to show you these swatches because I have them a little bit more in depth, and they're a little bit larger. So I want to tell you the high points and the low points of every product that I review. The thing I really like about these is painting with them, and I'm going to show you a few paintings that I did with these sets because they layer really well, they mix cleanly, I get the results that I expect when I mix 2 colors together, and they all have slightly unique qualities. Like my Ultramarines granulate as they should, my Viridian granulates as it should, my cadmiums are strong and robust, and my quinacridones layer beautifully. The downside, the one downside for me, and it might not be for you, is the selection of reds. I would prefer, like these 2 reds to me are very samey. They're, let me just look here. They are both mixes, and I would much rather have had and no wonder they're samey, because I think I could barely read those. I had to have like a magnifying glass. I think they're the exact same pigments. Mixes, just in different, either the milling was maybe like this may have been milled a little finer and that one's a little coarser, but they're very samey, and I don't feel like I have a really cool strong red. I have warm strong reds. I have a cool strong pink, which I can use for mixes, but it's almost fluorescent. It's a PV19, which is a great substitute for opera just because it has this is a quinacridone rose, just because it has that almost fluorescent look. It does not have the fluorescent dye in it, but it does have that, you know, really in your face bright pink look. But I would like a more crisper red, like a quinacridone alizarin crimson or a quinacridone rose. So that would be my only criticism of the color selection in this palette. But I also have the Mission Gold Pure Pigment set in tubes, so I could replace a pan and put in, or use my Da Vinci Quinacridone Alizarin Crimson, which I love, and replace one of those two very samey reds. I prefer that red to that one. That one looks very much like a, this is carmine, but to me it looks like the true alizarin crimson, which would be nice for somebody who loves that color, because the true alizarin crimson is fugitive, but the permanent alizarin crimson is more pinky. So for somebody who wanted something to look like an original alizarin crimson, this carmine would be a very good choice for you. It is a mixed pigment, but it's also going to be more light fast than your traditional alizarin crimson. But I just prefer a cleaner red. But that's really the only drawback that I can say for this kit. The other drawback, obviously, would be the list price of this kit. I just got a Cheap Joe's catalog, and they had this kit, this 48 set of half pan Rembrandts, listed for $510. That's a huge negative for most people. It would be for me. I wouldn't spend that much on a watercolor set. Like I said, I paid $134 on Amazon, but you know, if you're seeing this review and you're like, oh, I gotta have those, Lindsay says it's a great deal, here's $500. No, don't. I don't think it's a great deal at $500. I think it's a heck of a deal at $134. So I just want to say that as well. So, and just, I mean, some of these colors, there's, I think 26 of these are single pigment colors, and the others are mixes, but they're still very clean, very glazable, very layerable, nice colors. Look at that. That's a mix, but isn't that just like, don't you just want to like paint sea glass with that color? It's just so pretty. But I feel like there's no like weird shiny spots on the paint. I feel like they're very easy to work with, and their best feature, I think, is their layering and the effects you can achieve with glazes. So this was a painting I did Sunday, and I was just playing with this new paper. I got a sample pack of the Stonehenge Aqua, and this was the 300-pound cold press, and I did a series of washes and dry brushing to paint this velvety texture of this peach. I really love the way that came out. I did use a little smidgen of white gel pen, so I do want to be completely honest with you, because I wanted to, and it's my art, and I will. And I just had a lot of fun just playing with these paints. They were a lot of fun to mix. They were a lot of fun to layer, and it's one of those paints, is just swatching a color, and I'm going to compare the swatches with other artist grade paints in a minute, but I want to let you know that just swatching a color, looking at a color swatch alone, does not really tell you the quality of a paint. You have to paint with it, see how it layers. You can have cut paints that are so vivid and bright and gorgeous, and you go to do a painting like this and you get your first wash down, then you go to put on your next layer and all you get is streaks, because there's so much filler in it that even though it looks bright, it's been enhanced, so that when you go over it, you're actually just kicking up all of the paint from underneath, and it's getting muddier with each layer instead of more luminous. So I think that Rembrandt is really good at layering techniques. I also think Sennelier is very good at layering techniques. Do you need both? Absolutely not. And you can mix and match, which I really love. One other note about the palette, because I've mentioned palettes before, the edges on the interior of this are not finished, but they are not razor sharp like the Schmincke tin that I had that was really sharp, which I don't know, that might just be I might have got a fluke. Somebody else I know got a fluke, got a really sharp one too. My friend Rich over at the Spin Doctor channel, he got a sharp one. I just wanted to let you know these, I mean, I wouldn't go slicing my finger across it on purpose, but I'm like handling it. I wouldn't have a problem with my kids using these. I wouldn't worry they were going to cut themselves. Of course, my kids are teenagers. They're not like little kids. So I just wanted to mention that my edges aren't finished on the middle section of the tray, but they are on all the other parts. Okay, so layering, getting texture, it worked extremely well. And loose techniques, like I was just playing with this scrap of watercolor paper when I first got them, and I painted this little bookmark that I was looking for last night. I couldn't find it, so I had to use another painted bookmark scrap. But I was like, I want my rose one. I'm reading the new Michael Crichton one that just came out posthumously. It's called Dragon Teeth, by the way. You don't even care, but anyway. I'm reading that now. I don't know what I think yet, but I just started it. And so then I painted these two. This one's on a 140-pound cold press Stonehenge Aqua, and this one is on that same brand, but the hot press, 140-pound. And I really thought that the glazing did very well, and I actually switched up my reds on this one. So I went with I eliminated one of the reds I was using. I was using 2 different reds in each one because I thought it looked a little dull here. But again, I did like the glazing and layering aspect of this. I did those 2 before the peach, and I really just played with that to see what I could get for texture. And like that, the fuzzy texture was what I was going for. And I'm just thrilled. I am really having a good time with these paints. I think they are a good value. I am not brand new to Rembrandt because before I made this purchase, I saw a deal where there was 7 tubes, the little tubes of the Rembrandt paint. So there was like a split primary palette plus a burnt sienna and a block of Arches paper, and I figured, and it was like 50 bucks, and you know, a block of Arches paper goes for like 60 bucks. So I'm like, well, I was out of Arches blocks, so I'm like, what the heck, I'll buy that. And so I got to try the paint there, and I was very impressed with it. I wouldn't have picked this up kind of sight unseen, sight untried without having that little practice, and I was just very happy with the quality. And my only downside is that I would like another fresher red, but I'll probably just swap out the carmine. I was thinking that was carmine. That looks more like carmine to me. Then they're calling that permanent madder lake. The permanent madder lake looks much more like carmine to me. I actually prefer the Sennelier carmine. It's cleaner, it's single pigment, and these are both double pigments, so one of those will be replaced in my palette. But I didn't want to replace anything until I reviewed it as is. And oh, something else I did, because I had such a hard time reading those little labels, and I had like super bright lights on and my glasses on and everything, I went with a pen, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I wrote, so you have to take all these out and label them anyway. I wrote on the edges of the pans what pigments they were. And if it was something that was a lot of pigments like indigo, I just wrote indigo, just so I know, because you can see, if you look at those blues, it's really difficult to tell what colors they are because the colors are so transparent, as opposed to looking at like a gouache palette. There's no white in there to stop the light. Bits of dark, but it's because the colors are so transparent. So I definitely would do something, just write the pigment numbers, and then you'll get to learn your pigment numbers, which is really important as you're shopping for paint or replacing paint, or you just want to know if your paints are going to last you if you hang it, you know, on the wall. So it's very important information to know. Don't get bogged down with it, but just if you can pick it up as you go, all the better. Why not, right? All right, so let's compare these with some other artists' colors. I recently redid my swatch book because I had them all willy-nilly, and I decided to put my artist and student grades separately because I use student grade paint from time to time. When I'm teaching, I often teach with student grade colors because it's so, it's a barrier if somebody has to go and invest in all artist quality paints right off the bat to learn. They're much better to spend a little more on their paper and try the student grade paints to begin with. So I like to have both so that I'm using what the students are using. So at first, here are my M-grams. I do love my M-grams. They're probably my favorite. They were the first artist quality paint I ever had, and so they hold that special place in my heart. But they are lovely. You can look at their Cerulean Blue, is the same pigment as that Cerulean Blue. There is this is a fun fact, French Ultramarine and Ultramarine Deep. French Ultramarine is just a smidgen, they're the same exact pigment, but it's just a smidgen more red. And Ultramarine or Ultramarine Light and Ultramarine Deep, they're just a little bit towards blue more. They're a little cooler. Not a huge difference. You can use either one of them. They're not enough difference to affect a mix usually, so just keep that in mind. But so you can kind of see, I have to say the M-gram Viridian really is probably the most robust Viridian I have ever used. Most other Viridians are a little bit more like this one, more granular and more dull. The M-gram one is just smoother and brighter. Maybe it's milled more or something, I'm not sure. But so there are those two brands side by side. so you can see them. Look at all my reds. I love my reds. See, this is what I'm talking about. I love like a permanent Alizarin Crimson. You know, it's just such a nice color, or quinacridone red, which is almost like corally undertones. They're so pretty. I love it. So the Mission Gold Pure Pigment set has a lot of reds in it. That's that carmine from Sennelier I was telling you about. It's such a lovely color, versus the carmine here, which does not look that much like carmine to me. Kind of in the glazes it does, but it's definitely not as cool. See how warmer that is? It's almost bloody, whereas that's much of a cooler red. So that's just a preference, you know, that might not be your preference. It's red is my favorite color, so I'm a little picky with my reds. But so those are Sennelier artists versus the Rembrandt. Both beautiful paints. These are the Turners. Now the Turners, I don't find them to be quite as strong as other brands of paint, other brands of artist quality paint. However, they have some real standout colors. Their Pyrrole red is gorgeous. Their turquoise is gorgeous. It's a cobalt color. Their phthalo is very acceptable, and their colors are decent. They're great value. They're not as expensive as the other paints, so you kind of have to weigh that and the fact that, you know, yes, they're not quite as good, but they're a lot cheaper. So you gotta do what's right for you. This is a Lucas set of 48 that I was telling you about, and those colors are not bad. Those colors are bright and beautiful and lovely. Now the difference is painting with a Lucas versus painting with the Rembrandts that I felt in practice when I used both of them is that I could layer so much better with the Rembrandts. They're cleaner. As you're layering with the Lucas paints, there is a little bit of a film kind of. It's not really chalky, but it definitely has a little more body to it than the Rembrandts or Sennelier does. So that's just something to note, not something to dissuade you. These are a great deal as well, but definitely these are a little bit more luminous. So it's definitely a great value for your money, but I just wanted to kind of make that. It is such a small distinction. It's such a I don't want to say subjective because it's not subjective, it is what it is, but like if you're new you would probably not notice that. Just like I don't paint with oils as much as watercolors, so I don't really notice a big difference between student grade and artist grade oils. These are Holbein. They're also a lovely paint. I don't find them to be quite as transparent as the Rembrandts, but they're not bad. They're not my favorites, but they're not bad. They're good paint. Most, you know, pretty much any name brand watercolor paint is going to be pretty good. These are my Mission Golds, where I mentioned I had a lot of really nice reds. I'm going to go a little quicker because I'm taking a lot of time here. Those are the Windsor Newton Artist Watercolors. These are not my favorite. I mean, I like them. They're good paint. Don't get me wrong. But for the money, I think that they cost a lot more than other brands of that quality. So, but you know, very comparable. Definitely comparable. I like the Rembrandts better, but they're not bad. I just want to take it out of the sleeve so you didn't have glare there. Let's see, going through, we have Core. I like the Cores too. Very, very robust, bright color. Those are the White Knights. And those are the White Knight swatches I did. Those are very, very nice too. Very inexpensive. Good. Those are good value for money. Definitely. Schminke. I like these. I'm not don't have my socks knocked off as much as a lot of people do with the Schminke paints, but it could be the 12 that I have. I think they're lovely. But and it's probably just because I only have these 12 colors and I don't have as much to go on as I do other paints. I mean, they're definitely great, but they can be pricey. They can be quite pricey actually. And those were the Neo watercolors. They're bright and beautiful. They paint great, but they do have some sketchy pigments in them that I think will fade. So you do have to be aware of that. And Daniel Smith, of course, they are wonderful. I'm using them for my new watercolor course that I'm teaching, and they are just so reliable, robust, and strong, and you definitely get your money's worth because you have so much pigment in there. And those are the liquid watercolors by Dr. P.H. Martin. They're kind of a different animal. I prefer my paint to be dried on a palette, so I don't end up using them as much as I should because of that. These are the Gansai Tambais. They're a little mellower, and also this swatch hung on my wall for a while, so you know, even though I'm in the basement, I still have a lot of lights on down here, so these do look a little lighter than they did originally, but it's a different type of paint, you know. That's just basically what I'm getting down to, that it's a different type of paint. Da Vinci, they're another great bang for your buck. Also, the American Journey brand is the same as Da Vinci. Da Vinci private labels for different companies. And see, that's that red I love. Quinacridone Red Rose Deep. I like their crimson too, but those two reds, they are just just awesome. I love them. And I think that's pretty much, yeah, that's it for the for my artist colors that I have in my swatch book, so you can compare. I really like these. I'll link to them down below so you can check them out if you are interested in perhaps purchasing them or just learning more about them. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this review. Until next time, happy crafting!